Hey climbers, it's Anthony with Escape Climbing. I want to talk today about one of our most popular questions that we get is, what's the right T-nut for me? So there's a lot of different ways to answer that question, so I want to kind of walk through the different types of T-nuts you're likely to see out there on the market, talk through a little bit of the history of T-nuts, and then try and figure out which T-nut is going to be perfect for you in your particular project. So let's say you're a home wall person. You're building a woody in your garage or you're building it in your basement. For you, you're probably more price sensitive than a big commercial facility, somebody that has, say, 10,000 square feet of wall space, or they have multiple facilities. So what you're looking to do is you're really looking to maximize how much you can get out of the T-nuts that you're putting into the wall, so that you can spend more on the things that you really enjoy, like more climbing holds. For you, it's probably not worthwhile to spend a lot of money on the top end T-nut when something a little bit lower grade is going to work just fine for you. So with that in mind, the T-nuts that you're really going to be looking at are either a 4-prong T-nut or a 3-hole T-nut. And so let's just kind of talk through the benefits of the 4-prong real quick. With the 4-prong, this is a great option for home wall people. And the reason is it's really cheap. It's only, I think we sell this for 6 cents wholesale. So you can get a good number of T-nuts for relatively inexpensive, saving money for the things, again, that you want to spend money on, like more cool, fancy, shiny holes. The downside of the 4-prong T-nut is that it's not as high quality as, say, the industrial T-nut, which we'll talk about in a second. The reason for that is the way that it attaches to the wall is you actually just pound it in with a hammer, and over time what can happen is it can push the T-nut out as you're putting holds on and off the wall. This isn't so much an issue with home walls though, because for the most part you're not setting as frequently as you would at, say, a commercial facility where they're setting every single week or every single day. The T-nuts are getting a lot of wear and tear. So if you're a home wall user and you only need a couple hundred T-nuts, a 4-prong is going to be a really good option. The other reason it's good is because accessing the backside of your wall is probably a little bit easier than it is in a commercial facility where, let's say you're on a 40-foot tall route, you're dangling underneath an arch, and all of a sudden you pop a T-nut through. That's a pain in the butt to go around the wall, change it out, whereas in your garage, it's not such a difficulty to just kind of pop back there, take the old T-nut out, throw a new T-nut in. So 4-prong is going to be a good option for you in those instances. Saves a lot of money. It's not as robust as some of the other T-nuts that we'll talk about, but overall it's really cost effective and it's a solid option. Now, if you want to go a step up from the 4-prong, you don't want to deal with those maintenance issues quite as frequently, or the backside of your wall is a little bit harder to get access to, you're going to want to look at, say, the 3-hole T-nut. And the reason the 3-hole is really great is because instead of pounding the T-nut into the plywood, you're actually just setting it inside the bolt hole, and then you're setting it with 3 screws. So it's nice and secure, it's nice and stable, it's unlikely to spin, it's going to be a little bit harder to pop out the backside of the wall. So overall, if you have, say, a wall that's really hard to access at home, you just maximize the space that you had, you put it as flush against the wall as you could, you made it really hard to get behind the panel. This is going to be a good option because if you pop a T-nut back there, it's going to be a real headache to switch it out. So this could be a good choice. It's only a little bit more expensive. I believe it's like 12 cents wholesale per unit, as opposed to the 6 to 7 cents of the 4-prong. So it's price-wise a bit more expensive, but still in the same ballpark. And if you're only going to be buying a couple hundred or maybe 1,000, then it's going to be a good solid option for you. Now, moving up from there, say you're a commercial facility or you're a cooperative climbing facility where you're going to be setting more frequently, and you're going to have a lot more traffic on the wall. Then we're going to want to push you towards one of the T-nuts that we have specifically designed for climbing. What I mean by that is, in the T-nut history of climbing, it's really interesting. These, say like the 3-hole and the 4-prong, they're not designed for climbing specifically. They're borrowed from the furniture industry. So you'll most likely see these T-nuts on the underside of furniture, say like a table leg or a chair leg, and it's designed to attach like a caster or two. So what that means is these T-nuts, they're not super strong and designed for the wear and tear that you're going to see at a commercial facility, which is putting a lot of bolts in and out. There's going to be a lot of pressure on them. And so what we've designed, and what we would encourage you if you're a commercial facility, someplace that has a lot more traffic, you're going to want something a little bit more robust. It's going to have less maintenance attached to it. and it's going to last a lot longer. Now, the price will be a little bit higher, but it more than offsets itself in the long run. So let's talk about the first one. The first option for a commercial facility is our 2-hole commercial T-nut. This is a really cool T-nut that we just brought in earlier this year. We brought it in for a specific client who deals a lot with, say, like Lifetime Fitnesses and gyms of that sort, where they do a lot of climbing on it, but they don't necessarily route set every single day or every single week. They get a lot of traffic, so they need something robust and strong, but it doesn't need to be as awesome, let's say, as the industrial T-nut, and we'll talk about that in a second. So a couple of the cool features about the 2-hole commercial T-nut is it has a longer barrel than you would see on the 3-hole or the 4-prong. So what that means is on commercial grade plywood, that's like 3/4 inch, it's going to sit flush against the wood. So this is the industrial T-nut. They actually have very similar barrel lengths between the industrial and the commercial. And so it's going to sit flush against the panel as opposed to being more inset. And the reason this is a good thing for a commercial facility is as you're putting bolts in and out of your T-nuts, if the T-nuts recess in there, you have a better chance of getting texture or paint or little flakes of wood inside the T-nut as you try and get your bolt in there. If it sits flush, it's going to reduce the amount of debris that you're getting inside the T-nut, which makes it less likely to cross thread or strip, which if you're a root setter, you know that's like the absolute worst thing. Such a headache, you pop a T-nut and you feel your gut just kind of sink. You're like, I'm in for a little bit of fun now as I crawl behind the wall in all the dust. I get the angle grinder or I get the breaker bar and I try and get this thing off there. We've all been there. Nobody wants to be there. The great thing about the commercial and the industrial T-nut is like that you're going to spend less time in that place. So another great feature of the 2-hole is that installation is a lot quicker because there's only 2 holes as opposed to the 3-hole. This is it seems really obvious, right? Like you have one less screw, so it's going to take 1/3 as long to install. And that really adds up when you have tens of thousands of T-nuts that you're installing, say in your new gym, or you're doing an upgrade or an expansion. It really adds up. That time savings is massive, not even considering the maintenance times that you're going to save in the long run. So this is the 2-hole commercial T-nut. It's a great option. I believe it retails at around 15 cents wholesale. Don't quote me exactly on that. Prices are always kind of fluctuating based off of steel prices and import taxes and things like that. So you're going to want to double check at the time when you're watching this video just to make sure the prices are still mostly relevant. So that's a 2-hole commercial T-nut. The next step up, and this is our favorite T-nut. This is the Escape Industrial T-nut. This was specifically designed for rock climbing gyms, and it is, in our estimation, the best T-nut on the market. There's nothing out there that's quite like it. It's something that we take a lot of pride in, but it's not for everybody. It is by far the most expensive T-nut that we offer. It's 20 cents per unit, so it's going to be a little bit pricier, but again, it has the 2-hole installation, which is almost going to pay for itself as you install it in your new gym. Like in the long run, it's just the amount of time you save having to drill over and over and over. It's a no-brainer. A couple unique features of this T-nut, and the reason that it's so awesome, we put a lot of time and thought and energy into this T-nut. And so this wide flange, if you take a look at that and compare it, say, to the 2-hole commercial or the 3-hole or the 4-prong, it's quite a bit wider. And the reason for that is, let's say you have an older gym and you had 4-prong T-nuts in there, or you had 3-hole T-nuts in there, and you had some stripped ones, and you had to go behind the wall, you had to take a hammer and a crowbar, and you had to pry it out of there. Now the plywood around that hole is a little chunked up. It's not quite as good as it was. And so as you go to put a new 3-hole T-nut in there, you can't find any good wood to put a screw in there. Well, with the wider flange, this allows you to get a little bit further out than where that bad wood would be. You can find that fresh wood, and it can sink in there without any issues. So that's a really great feature for older gyms or places that they have a little bit more wear and tear on their walls. The wide flange is also really good because we're offsetting where the screws are in relation to the bolt hole. It actually has more torsional resistance. It's a little bit stronger because of that. But with T-nuts, there's 2 things that really dictate the strength. One is how many threads you have the bolt into it, and the quality of the plywood going in. We've had this T-nut, as well as a number of our other T-nuts, tested up to European standards. They have a much more rigid standard in terms of what they consider a commercial ready T-nut, and the industrial T-nut passes that with flying colors. But the real limiting factor there, again, is the plywood that it's actually being installed in, and not so much the T-nut itself. We will talk after this a little bit about steel quality and strength, and is the 4-prong or the 3-hole, is it as strong as the industrial T-nut? What makes for a good strong T-nut? We'll talk about that in a second, but I want to talk about, before we move off the industrial T-nut, probably the thing that's the coolest about it, and that is, if you could see inside here, the last 1/4 inch or so of this T-nut is smooth bored. And what that means is, as you try to put a bolt in there, there's no threads for it to catch. So if I put it in there all cattywampus, it's not going to catch, it's not going to start threading, it's actually going to auto-correct itself, and then it's going to start going into the T-nut. This is a lifesaver. If you've ever cross-threaded a T-nut, you know what a pain in the butt it is. We've all been there, we've all felt the drill start to grind a little bit, and we still rammed it home. It's a problem for future you or future whoever's stripping that route, but it's a problem for whoever's dealing with it. So if we can eliminate the cross-threading from the very beginning and make it so that it's unlikely to even cross-thread, well, we're saving your root setters a ton of time, ton of headache, and this is something that we're really, really psyched on. So the self-guided barrel is probably the single most amazing feature of this T-nut. It's one that we're really psyched on. So cycling back, one of the questions that we get a lot is, what's the difference in quality of these T-nuts, right? So for the most part, T-nuts come out of China, and it's not to say that there's no quality regulation, because what you can do is you can demand certificates of conformance so that you can make sure that the steel that they're using every single time is up to spec. What can happen with the T-nuts that are borrowed from the furniture industry, let's say the 4-prong T-nut, is they don't have those specs necessarily, because the T-nut doesn't need to be up to the same standard, right? So what we've seen, and as recently as a couple of weeks ago, we got an email, and this was really interesting. It was from a new gym. They'd only been open for 7 or 8 months, and they had a version of the 3-hole T-nut in their wall. And what they were seeing was the base of the T-nut and the barrel were starting to pucker, and it would give way, and then even with just slight pressure from a wrench or a drill, they could break the barrel off of the base. This is a really weird problem that we've only ever really encountered when you're trying to get a stripped hold off the wall. You're using a lot of force with, say, a breaker bar. So the fact that this is occurring with light pressure when you're installing the holds is really worrisome. But it can happen because there's no guarantee that the quality that you're going to get with your T-nuts is going to be up to that standard that you expect, unless you go through that rigmarole and that extra step with your suppliers to make sure that they're using the correct steel grade that you requested. And this is something that we feel very strongly about, something that we hold our personal suppliers to a high standard on. We want to make sure that every batch of T-nut that we're bringing in and sending out to you to climb on is as good as we can make it. That is something that we can stand behind. And we do stand behind all of our hardware. Sometimes things still happen, but we do warranty our hardware as something that we stand behind. So that's a rundown of T-nuts and what you're likely to need for your particular usage. If you have a home wall, 4-prong, 3-hole, those are going to be your best bet. They're nice and inexpensive, a little bit higher maintenance cost, but because you have less T-nuts and less maintenance in general, it's going to be a good option. If you're a commercial facility, you're going to want to go with the 2-hole commercial or the Escape Industrial. It's going to be a bit more expensive, but in the long run, it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of heartache. So if you have any questions about the T-nuts, get down to the comments, shoot us an email at orders@escapeclimbing. We'd love to answer any questions that you have. If you have a project that you're working on, you need another set of eyes on it, or you'd like some advice, shoot us an email. We'd love to help you out. So talk to you later, guys.